Well, let's go directly then to the three people who have agreed to present this morning. And in advance, I just want to thank you all very much. This is seen as a forum for exchange of ideas and discussion. So I sincerely hope nobody is seeing it in any way as some sort of an oral examination or anything of that nature. So maybe we'll start in the way that you're listed. And I'm not going to give a long introduction, but maybe at the very outset, you just might say a few words about yourselves. I mean, Boniface is in the Department of Sociology at Kenyatta University, and his area of work is on household graduation from hunger, the safety net program in Marsabit County in Kenya. So Boniface, would you, if you want to say a few brief words about yourself to begin with, that's grand, and then we look forward to hearing and discussing what you have to say. You have approximately 10 minutes, and we're leaving 10 minutes as well for discussion. Okay, so the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across the world, and a happy new year. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, proceed, Boniface.
Okay, thank you. My name is Boniface Monene Rufo, a PhD student at Kenyatta University, Department of Sociology, Gender and Development Studies. So I'm glad for this forum, being invited in this forum, and thank you for the organizers. Actually, it's a good starting point of even motivating us as PhD students. So today, I want just to give an overview of key research areas that community development students engage in, and the integrating research into community development practice, and the missing link between theory and the practice, and the way forward as community development practitioners. As I started saying, I'm in Kenyatta University, but at the same time, I'm an assistant lecturer in the Department of Social Sciences at Chuka University, Kenya. I teach community development and sociology courses. And my thesis topic is on correlates of households graduation from hunger safety net program in Marsabit County in Kenya. It is a county with majority of the residents being the pastoralist community. And actually my supervisor, my main supervisor is Dr. Muya, who is with us here today. The reason why I decided to do this topic was out of a gap, a need of self-reliance within the social protection policies. And to be very specific, the social safety net, case of hunger safety net program in Kenya, where we give the government and other organizations give monthly cash transfer and other kind of support to different households that they need. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of dependency syndrome. So I'm looking forward to develop a model on graduation, on how once a household has been supported, how it can graduate from that program and perhaps focus within themselves in the household. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm at the proposal level. In Africa, and especially in Kenya, main research areas that our students, especially those specializing in community development, do includes the following: the livelihoods, community leadership and governance, the issues of health, food security, gerontology, gender, child care, social and public policy. This is where now my study fits. But something that I have realized within the practice, within the field, is that our supervisors or the experts in the field are overwhelmed because they get students from all these diverse areas. And community development, because of the lean of the expertise in the field, you find that one supervisor might guide so many students at the same time within all these different fields. different areas of study. So therefore, we need to integrate research into community development practice. What you realize is that once students, the postgraduate students do their research, they end up in the library. And this is a knowledge that can be tapped, both to improve our policies in community development, to improve the well-being, and even the operations of the states and other organizations. But to be sincere, most of the research, rarely will you find an organization coming to say, or perhaps to get a research findings, the research findings that have been done by our students in the area to improve the operations. So I think this is something that we need to look at. Of course, research and the community development, they relate because research is a tool for community development. Because once we have evidence of what is happening within our communities, then we can realize community development. However, when we sit in the boardroom and start to do things without doing research, we find ourselves having a blueprint that might not be adopted at all. And therefore, we find the issue of improving the well-being not sustainably achieved. Again, communities, we need to appreciate that communities are objects and also co-actors of research, so we need to integrate them. However, we need also to appreciate the fact that there's a missing link between theory and practice. There's a lot of theorizing in the field, in the social sciences, in community development, but the fact is, community development is both a theory and a practice. But we spend a lot of time, teaching theory, but we need equal energy directed towards the practice. And actually, we can achieve this because the majority of community development practitioners are in the field. They are practicing, and a few are in academics. So it is very, very possible to achieve the integration of theory and practice. Sometimes we teach students and we try to, link them with the organization outside there, at least through practicums, at least for them to achieve the skills. But at the end of the day, even us, we really feel that theory is more than the practice. Now, the way forward, let us be the hummingbird. Let us do our best. I told a story of a hummingbird. The forest was burning, and all animals decided to leave the forest. But the hummingbird decided to put out the fire with its small beak. So, of course, it was impossible, but it tried the level best. So as community development practitioners, we need to try our best within our field. And that's why we need to applaud the organizers of this forum, because we have started very well. We are doing our best despite the geographical, differences. So we need to register more students to our association so that they can learn, because again, to improve or to give more weight to the practice, we need to engage them to such networks so that they can learn and differentiate the classwork and the fieldwork. And this is one of the platforms that our students can learn. We need to mount master classes and the practical exchanges. And I want to appreciate, again, our leaders in this forum, in this association, because we have been seeing also master classes being conducted. We need to document and utilize research findings. As I started saying, community development students are doing a lot, and we need to utilize this knowledge so that we can improve our projects, our undertakings, Because again, when we leave our students to just graduate and go and start to do their own things without that mentorship, then we lose it. So we need a two-sided mentorship to a student. That is a mentorship that is geared towards them theorizing, because again, we can't run away from theorizing as the starting point. And again, we need a mentorship from the practical side of it. So we need to engage all this. We need to do community skills audit so that we can know and we can be able to harness the skills and knowledge that we have. I have realized that our communities are very rich in terms of knowledge. So we need to do this community skills audit and engage our students at the postgraduate level, because their research can be blended with the indigenous knowledge that is in the field and improve our communities and actually achieve some of our sustainable development goals. And lastly, we need to professionalize community development. We need to, have code of ethics documented. We need to register community development practitioners so that they can be able to agitate for their rights. We have seen so many students graduating and they don't know even where they can start, because we lack a registered association that is well anchored with the laws and the policies. So we need again to professionalize this so that we can safeguard our thinking as community development practitioners. Because again, we can talk a lot, but we don't have a place that we can call home. So thank you so much for listening at me. That's what I end for today, because it is a starting point. In case I'm invited again, I'll present something. Thank you.
And with that, maybe I'll move on then to Chanyu Chang from the Social Work Department at Hong Kong Baptist University, who's working on understanding community capacity building in the community development context in Hong Kong, of course. And I look forward very much. And I know that you're also a member of the Community Work Association in Hong Kong, which in Ireland we've long since had a very productive and useful relationship with. So it's great to see you here and look forward to hearing from you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. May I just share my screen first? Okay.
And can I encourage everyone, the rest of us, maybe to mute ourselves, including.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my research. I'm Chanyu Chang. I'm a PhD candidate from the Social Work Department of Hong Kong Baptist University. And my research topic is understanding community capacity building in the community development context. Of course, that is Hong Kong. And this is the outline of the presentation. First, I would like to introduce the background of my research. Community capacity building, CCB, just short form call it, has been increasingly promoted since the late 1990s. And there's a global trend spreading the practice and policy around CCB to different countries and different disciplines. And this trend also has influenced the country and regions in Asia, including Hong Kong. And regarding the CCB and community development literature, although there are criticism of CCB, but it is suggests that CCB is a part of the broader community development process, and it is an approach to community development which differentiates from CCB from community development. And CCB is a refinement of community development, and it is also a suggest that community capacity can be enhanced in a community development program context. Therefore, CCB can be a helpful tool for practitioners and researchers to improve community development practice. And in the community development field in Hong Kong, CCB have become more prevalent after welfare restructuring. On the one hand, the government has terminated long-term funding supporting conventional community development practice. But on the other hand, the government has supported community projects through short-term funding. I think that's similar to some international case around the world. So in Hong Kong, the Community Investment and Inclusion Fund, CII, is an example of that. And CCB has become one of the main themes of CII project to support the project to build supportive networks for disadvantaged groups in the neighborhood. And also CCB has been recognized as one of the objectives of community development survey in the social welfare in Hong Kong. But however, there is a lack of CCB studies and tools guiding practitioners to work with the project participants in the context of Hong Kong. According to the literature, CCB is still not a well understood concept, and there is no consensus on the definition of CCB along the models and tools to assess CCB, given that the complex nature of CCB. It is also suggested that CCB involves three standard patterns, including CCB is a process or an approach. It contains different characteristics of CCB, and it also incorporates an outcome for CCB. This studies refers to asking for a working definition. So they define a CCB as community capacity is the interaction of human capital, organizational resources, and social capital existing within a given community that can be leveraged to solve collective problems and improve or maintain the well-being of a given community. This definition emphasizes the process and both perspective of CCB that involves the interaction of individuals, organizations, and networks to achieve community outcomes. It also highlights the involvement of different actors in the CCB process. So CCB can be enhanced in community development programs and through the relationships between community members, community workers, and NGO or the government or the funders. This figure is showing the CCB relationships in a community development program. The CCB process operates within the CCB relationship among these three key actors. And in the program context, the core focus of CCB is increasing the capacity of community members to define, assess, or analyze, or act on their shared concerns. Then the role of practitioners or NGOs is to support the community member in developing their capacity. Therefore, to understanding the CCB process, it is suggested to consider not only studying the capacity of the community member, but also the capacity of practitioners and NGO, and the interaction among the actors. For attacking the CCB process, there are operational characteristics and contextual factors influencing the CCB process. The operational characteristics provide a way for the actors to plan, implement, and elaborate CCP in a program context. The CCP process also depends on the contextual factors. These figures outline the factors influence the CCP process in the program context, including operational characteristics, contextual factors, but also the interaction among the actors in the CCP process. These are the 9 characteristics of CCP identified in my research. These tables show the description of each of the operational characteristics. For example, participation, leadership, learning, and skill development, and resources mobilization, and etc. For the contextual factors of CCP, it is suggested that the CCP process is influenced by the interaction of environmental, organizational, and individual factors. 3 types of contextual factors of CCP are identified, including CCP context, organizational characteristic of the program, and the characteristic of the participants. So my research has 4 research objectives. Mainly is to explore CCP in the context of in the context of community program, and these are the research questions. The study used a qualitative approach to examine actors' experience in the CCP process, semi-structural in-depth interview, and purposive sampling were used. And 9 community development projects took part in the research, and in total, there are 32 interviews were conducted, involving 16 community workers and 17 project participants. The second method is reviewing documents for triangulational purpose. Totally, 133 project documents were reviewed. And qualitative data analysis was carried out, and especially the thematic analytic approach was used. For the findings of my research, this table indicates the overall view of the findings from the perspectives of practitioners, participants, and NGO or the funders. Different themes were identified based on the 9 operational characteristics. The study also identified the contextual factor of CCP from the perspectives of practitioners and participants. This table shows the themes of the contextual factors. So for the discussion and learning insight, there are 9 operational characteristics of CCP have been identified in my research, which confirms the multi-dimensional nature of CCP. And there are general characteristics of CCP which can be transferable among different communities and settings. There are more common CCP characteristics identified in my research, such as participation, partnership, and learning and skills development. But some characteristics, like leadership, are relatively less important in my research. So it is recognized that the usefulness of some of the CCP characteristics can be very different in different community contexts. And my research also confirmed the importance of identifying the contextual factor in the programs. And two different sets of contextual factor have been identified from two different perspectives of the actors. The practitioners pay more attention to the organizational factors, and meanwhile, the participant, their participation may depend on the individual factors. And the study confirms the multi-level contextual factors of the CCB in the program. For the learning insight in my research, the operational characteristic of CCB can be used to understand the CCB process, and it can be used to capture the actors' experience and their view in the CCB process. And there are some CCB characteristics found to be more common in the field in Hong Kong, but some were less evident in my research. For example, in the studies, some practitioners even reject using the leadership, the term leadership in their practice. So the study may reflect a very different understanding of CCB in the community context in Hong Kong or Chinese-speaking society. This may lead a further investigation to confirm these findings. So the study also incorporates different perspectives and contextual factors with empirical example, which confirm the complex nature of the CCB. The study also confirmed the importance of examining different actors' experience and perspectives. And also, there are multi-level of contextual factors of CCB. Also, I think that a pedagogical guide is needed for CCB actors. For example, in my research, the large general characteristic of CCB can be a pedagogical tool for them to work with the participants. Also, my research suggests that a more extended period of funding may lead to support the CCB process. So it is suggested that the funder may consider funding a longer period for the community development projects. For the future research, it can involve more community projects to examine the use and meanings of line CCB characteristics. Also, further research can be done to apply the CCB characteristics and comparing the findings in regions under different welfare systems. So the future research can be done to compare different findings in different regions. And also future research can be done to develop CCB tools for guiding community workers to improve their community development practice. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Will we go then to Trish? Trish Brennan is a lecturer in community work at Maynooth University. And she works in the Department of Applied Social Studies, and which also had an infliction of me for a number of years. And I will leave Trish to explain to you in a little more detail about her research and her research concern.
Sorry, Stacia. Thank you very much, Stacia, and thank you for the opportunity to IACD for the meeting and for it to present. Just let me see if I can get this to slideshow. Just one moment. Can everybody see the slides? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, as I said, for the opportunity. And you know, it's interesting your objective around, you know, research and support and international networking, and how interesting it's been to hear from Chan and Boniface in relation to community work internationally and in their own countries. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So my name is Trish Brennan. As Stacia said, I lecture in Maynooth University as a community worker, and I'm involved in the undergrad and master's programs there. I just to give you a quick kind of idea of who I am, or who is the researcher. My background was in women's health and sexuality before I came to community work. I held a role as the education officer with the Irish Family Planning Association, so I was very embedded in work with women and work on rights, and particularly abortion rights and contraception and all of that. I got my professional qualification in Maynooth in 1994, a postgrad diploma, joined Community Work Ireland, which I would say was a very significant part of my development as a community worker. And you know, their input, support around policy and the national membership of that. Community work practice for 20-25 years at this stage, probably nearer to 30. I call it 20 because it makes me feel younger, but that includes urban regeneration, travellers' rights, accommodation, and particularly work with an organisation called St. Michael's Family Resource Centre, which is based in Dublin 8, in Dublin City. And I'll come back to that. That was an inspirational, and I'm still involved with that project 25-30 years later, having gone on placement as a student to them. I acquired my master's degree in 2013, led to teaching in Maynooth, it led to doctorate studies, it led to some work with the National Women's Council of Ireland on gender mainstreaming and women's health. And unfortunately, my doctorate studies were deferred in 2018 due to health problems within my family, and I'm only now recommencing. So I'm at a very, very early stage. My doctorate hat is very new to me, so bear with me. And I'm aware as well, I'm here as an educator, but I'm also here as a student, and I'm in the company of my supervisor and my teacher. So it's very interesting domain or situation, context to be in. So I am embarking on my research, my doctoral research. Literally, I'm in the early weeks of it, but my research aim I have constructed at the moment as to explore the role of community work or community development in responding to and addressing violence against women. And that term, I would like to come back to that because I think the term is going to be really important in this. But at the moment, it's the term violence against women at local and national level, to explore the role of community work in responding to the issue. So that's my research aim. Just to give some reasons for this study from my point of view, work on the issue has, you know, I have a long commitment to it as a community worker in my practice. And the political and human rights of women has been an issue for me since I've started in this work. The scale of the problem, you know, in Ireland, certainly I know it's not just in Ireland globally, but in Ireland we're very conscious. I mean, femicide is almost a weekly occurrence in the news. So our situation and the pandemic, of course, we know did not help that. So the issue, the scale of the problem is an impetus. From a professional point of view, in 1997, well, actually earlier, I went on placement and I began working with St. Michael's Estate Family Resource Centre. And they have built and put a lot of energy into strategizing and building a model around violence against women. They were groundbreaking in this regard. They were the first to do so. There's a very interesting exhibition in which they were involved in, which was shown in IMA. It was 17 local women worked with professional artists to highlight and raise consciousness about the whole issue of violence against women, both their own experience as women and the women they knew in their own community. And the catalyst for this, which is interesting when you think about Freire and emotion and how it instigates community responses, was the death of one of the women in the women's group at the hands of her neighbor, a male who he struck her as she came home from being out with her friends, and she died as a result. So there was a big catalyst around the seriousness of violence against women and the fatal nature of it and the devastation of that. So there was a lot of work done around integrating services, training, consciousness raising in the project. And I was there as a worker at the time. And as a result, I have stayed, not as a result of that, but I actually have stayed involved, even though I live very far away now. I'm still involved in that project and in the outreach centre that came to be for women experiencing violence. We have 2 workers there. I'm still involved on the board of management and supporting staff and all of that. So this is very much from a practitioner perspective, as well as a theoretical or an educator's perspective. Community development has a role to play on this issue. How can we expand and extend a workable model for use in both local responses and policy work? So that's my interest. How can this play a role in actually enabling communities to avoid the issue, to tackle the issue, to prevent the issue, to deal with it and respond to it? And then it demands attention at local level, at community level. The needs of diverse groups of women exist here, and these needs have to be invested in and responded to, and supports given. So, you know, that's another, the multiple urgent and effective responses are needed. Well-developed and enduring community response is an imperative now. So I suppose that's where I'm coming from in relation to the reason for my study and the interest in community work, the role of community work in it. So Community Work Ireland publication from 1997, a very interesting publication where Liz Sullivan, our colleague in community work, made the statement in an article: if we fail to create the conditions to support women experiencing violence, we are automatically excluding them. So domestic, sexual and gender-based violence is not determined by class or social status, but the effects of violence can be all the more traumatic for the women who we are most concerned with in community work, which is those who are marginalised, those living in poverty, those who are alienated from services, those with disabilities, transgender women, ethnic minority women, traveller women, among many others. So the community work rationale exists there very clearly. Why community work? As I said, the rationale does. It promotes an equitable distribution of power and resources, which is at the root of this issue. If we, going back to Stacey's earlier point about the analysis of the issue that we bring from a community work lens, is very important. So at the root of this issue is the distribution and the inequality of power and resources. It involves an analysis of social structures and works to bring about social change for women. It works actively to promote equality and challenge oppression, and it's about empowerment, participation, and for those who are affected. And importantly, it promotes an integrated response. It promotes some kind of impact on policy and policy development, and then interagency and multi-agency responses led by, or in some cases, by community development. I just thought this quote was very important from a community work point of view as well. Ona McArdle just completed her, our colleague in Maynooth University and in CWI, completed her doctorate, and she makes the comment very early in her analysis of radical community work and the tensions therein, that a feature of community work in Ireland in recent years is its tradition to seek to address both the causes and consequences of problems faced by diverse communities, including geographical communities and communities of identity and interest, such as travellers and women. So community work, you know, these concerns are at the centre of community work. And so we must be seen to respond with a well-developed analysis and action. In terms of, I won't say much about domestic violence in Ireland, but we do have a brand new strategy, government strategy, which states within it that a community development approach recognises that competent and confident communities provide a powerful means of intervention and prevention with domestic violence. So we do have, and I have had conversations with the main agency responsible for funding in this area, they do have an interest in building a model around community development. Now, of course, we know that strategy documents and policy documents can be light on implementation sometimes. So I suppose research of this nature is really important in providing the evidence to further and push for these aspirations within government documents and strategies to be made real. So I suppose I'm excited about the possibility of research doing that. So to some of my research objectives flowing from the aim is to document practice, capture the analysis, the practical expertise that's been developed to date in this area. And there has been, it's diverse across the country. I mean, obviously St. Michael's Estate I'm most familiar with. It's quite deep there and well developed, but no documenting of that has taken place. To highlight innovative models of community work practice and to answer the question, what is the role for dialogue, these principles of community work, participation, empowerment, and what is the potential for working collectively? I think that's a very challenging question around this particular type of work. And it has shown itself to be challenging in the practice of the work as I've seen it myself. From a theoretical framework point of view, the drivers, a place to explore. I'm sorry, guys, my image is in the way of my, just let me move this, sorry. Your faces are in my way. Now, where am I? Yeah. So a place to explore from. So I suppose from a theoretical framework, community work theory is extremely important. The professional standards and guidance that are coming from the likes of yourself, you know, IACD, AIEB in Ireland, Margaret Ledwith and all of the Anastasia Crickley, Ona McCardle, all of our theorists around community development and feminist community work theory. Lena Dominelli is somebody I'm certainly very interested in looking at in this respect. The politics of empowerment and intersectional, framework, Patricia Hill Collins, the whole idea that this does not affect women in a one-dimensional way and that it has to be looked at from an intersectional perspective. And then the gender power relations and the theory, the critical theory and all of that. So questions, I suppose, you know, there are questions that I'm still very early on with this research. So there's things kind of swimming around in my head, which I believe I'm allowed to do for a while anyway. So the invisibility and shame of this issue, you know, the stigma attached to it, there are implications to that around working from a community work point of view. The domestic versus public domain, keeping women apart in some way, you know, it's not my business, it's not our business. That the need to reconceptualize that. Now, I think a lot of work has been done on reconceptualizing that, but you know, it's certainly still a traditional idea that exists that somehow it's a domestic issue. The health of work with women and women's groups. So when I say the health, I mean the way in which women's groups have disappeared really from the landscape in Ireland. The organic women's work that was being done 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, is not being done in the same way. And so what are the challenges that presents in terms of this work that we're talking about? Equally, you know, I was talking to a colleague yesterday about how is the problem, you know, the idea of Carol Batchy, what's the problem represented to be? And is it a women's issue? You know, is it male violence? Is it violence is the issue, or is it something women have to somehow solve and work on without the solidarity of men and male practitioners, and the whole idea of how is it framed and how do we tackle it and where do we start? The issue again of analysis, as Stacia mentioned earlier. The role of culture and tradition and the patriarchal system of power and control that exist, and how that can create tensions in communities for how we come at the issue. And then terminology, it's a small issue, but I think it's something which will be a question I have to, excuse me, it's a question I'm going to have to kind of sort out for myself as I go through the research, and it's important obviously for community. So the methodology, I'm going to say very little on that. It's practitioner research is really I'm coming at it within an action research paradigm. So the idea that it's going to inform practice and be, you know, using research strategies. Again, I'm going to have to move the image, sorry guys. Using research strategies that tackle real world problems. So this is a real world problem in a participatory and collaborative manner in order to produce both new knowledge and promote action. I think the promoting action bit is so important. So the new knowledge leading to good practice, leading to good models, strong models of community action, and then aimed at professional development of our discipline. Lastly, just to say the rationale and potential for community work response is clear. You know, it's clear for me, it's very clear. I think there's a documenting function there, and there's a development and discussion about how we do it and how we do it safely and ensure women are safe. There's practice already in place, so there needs to be documented and built on. And there is no research to date. So we have 30 years of practice to be looking at, examining, talking and discussing and building on. So that's very exciting and very, it's serious that's the situation, but that, yeah. And constitutes research designed to support community development, informed change. So given the theme of your meeting and IACD's focus this morning, I believe this research is really designed to support community development, informed change. And just lastly to say, Stacia, is I think it's interesting that from a practitioner point of view, this is very significant, but also from an education point of view. I teach community work. This is going to inform me both as a practitioner and the practice, but also as an educator. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Very much. I think in the interests of all of us surviving the day, we should begin to wrap up now. Or the night for that matter. I'm conscious of your time, KK, and Cheng's time in Hong Kong. And we'll ask Jessica to send a doodle poll for a meeting where we take the ideas that we have already, action research, participative action research, looking at sustainable communities, sustainable solutions for communities, and then looking at the specific sort of questions for research ethics that emerge from this type of research, whether you're looking at action or participative action research. And Kira, who's now gone, has just completed a piece of work here, which has taken that sort of element very seriously. So we'll gather any more thoughts people have. Sometimes it's difficult to come up with the thoughts immediately. I'm conscious, Boniface and Daniel, that you both spoke about community work itself, you know, and community development itself, and the need for its professional status to be recognized more clearly. So there are a number of areas that people have come up with. So maybe if people have other ideas, if you can send them to Jessica, and we'll ask her to convene a meeting. And the other thing we might need to look at that meeting is how this sort of a network might be led going forward, you know, whether it may be possible for some or all of you here to take on that sort of leadership role. Okay.
Thank you, Stacia.
Thanks very much, everybody. Good to see you all.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
And thanks to KK and Sarah in particular for their persistence and commitment to making this possible, because it's always very hard to get the first one going. So thank you very much, both of you in particular, for your persistence. Okay.
Thank you for chairing it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.